It's actually video long. And I'll cut you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Ramon Gil. I'm the organizer of the New York Comic Book Writers and Creators. This is our second meeting. I apologize, I'm not emceeing or hosting. I just got out of the hospital on Monday. Luckily, my good friend Dennis Knight stepped in to be the moderator. And I want to introduce Fabrice Sapolsky, who is the writer, and I'm sure you guys read his short bio on our site. I created this meetup group because I wanted to combine my love for making comics with teaching. And I wanted to create a workshop environment where people can come, primarily writers, to sort of like get better at what they're doing. I plan to invite more and more professional comic book people to come speak, and eventually to have an actual workshop where we actually get things done. So I encourage people to join this group if they're very serious about putting work out. There are a lot of groups out there where it's mostly talk, mostly people sketching around or coming up with characters and superpowers. This group's for people who actually want to self-publish or get into the business. And I'm going to leverage every relationship I have with people who are in the business to come and help us out. So without further ado, and one more thing. Greg Pak told me a long time ago. Come on, Greg Pak told me a long time ago, I'm not sure if you know who Greg Pak is, that it's best to network with people who are at the same level as you. Because people who are above you already have their network. And they're probably going to only help out people who are their peers. So if you want to get in, network with people who are at the same level as you. And as you all go out, you can help each other out. Which is one of the reasons why I do this. I met Fabrice 2 years ago.
Yep.
In Baltimore. This poor guy was moving to the US, and so I can make him my best friend because he doesn't know anybody here. So we've been friends ever since.
Yeah.
And he helped me he let me guest write on his book through Dynamite. So that was one of my breaks, and it was thanks to him.
Happy to do it again, whenever you want.
So like Greg said, network with your peers. I noticed you guys are networking with each other already. After this event is over, make sure you network with each other. You can probably stay in touch through the meetup group. I'm not sure if you came here through the meetup group or through the Facebook posts. But definitely, I didn't bring a sign-up sheet today, but in future events I will. But definitely either friend me or go to my website, ramongil.com, and you can sign up for my newsletter, which talks about how to break into the business, and you can also get samples of my work over there.
And the comics professional?
They can all
Later.
Okay. They'll get them in the newsletter.
Okay.
I created a website called comicsprofessionals.com, and you can put your work up there, and you can rate other collaborators. It's free to join. And I think that's it. I just want to thank Dennis again. Pronto Comics is a great resource if you haven't heard of them. We believe that everybody should can get published.
Yep.
And I would go more often.
Sure. But you're going to Comic-Con, right?
Huh?
You're going to Comic-Con, right?
Yeah, well, I just spoke to Dominic today and about the tables.
Okay, cool.
So without further ado, I'd like to hand the stage over to Fabrice and Dennis.
All right.
Thank you,
Let's give
Ramon.
them a big hand for coming out tonight.
Take attendance after if you want.
Awesome.
That'd be helpful.
Yes, very helpful. Your name was?
Jonah.
Thanks, Jonah.
Okay, so
Whenever you're ready, shoot.
let's jump into the first question. When did you first become interested in comics?
I think everyone has the same answer. Like the day you start reading.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. I sometimes tell that story that when I was a kid, well, I was living in France, okay? So comics were translated. The first comics that I was exposed to were translated into French. And in the 1970s, because I'm not that young, when I was a little kid, American comics were only in the newsstands, and French comics were in the bookstores.
Okay.
But they didn't mix.
Got it.
And every time I went back from school, I would go through the newsstand, and through the window, I was attracted by the colors of the American comics.
Sure.
One day I got in, and the first book that I picked was Conan the Barbarian.
Nice.
Imagine my mother's
Right.
face when I brought back Conan that I bought with my own money. And I was probably 8, 9 years old. I don't know. But at the same time, I also discovered we had like pocket repros of old DC comics.
Mm.
And I think the same day I bought Green Lantern.
Nice.
So it was Green Lantern and Conan. These were my first comics. But of course, after I discovered all the rest, and I started reading comics in English when I was a teenager, because they were harder to find, and they were also more expensive. Translated comics, it's like incredible, but translated comics in every other country in the world are less expensive than original comics. Go figure.
Wow.
So
Did not know that.
yeah, and at the time you had a better quality, better paper stock.
Sure.
Even though they were translated.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I kept on reading them translated for a while, until it was like I was tired of waiting, because there was a
Sure.
gap, and not all the series were translated. So when I wanted something, I started reading in English, and I never stopped.
There you go. All right. Okay, so the $1 million question that everybody wants to know is, how did you break into the industry?
Okay, so this is my favorite story. I had a strategy,
Okay.
and if you have to understand something about this business, is that you have to come prepared. You have to come with a strategy. So when you start your career, you say, okay, how do I get in? How do I break it? And the question is, who do I know? So you guys have each other. This is, and what Ramon said earlier was pretty accurate. You have to be with a group of people, and with that group of people, you all lift up. For me, it was a triple challenge. A, I wanted to be in American comics, and I lived in France. B, English is not my first language. And C, of course, nobody would take me seriously, because there was no precedent. Actually, there's one precedent, but it's like kind of cheating. Have you heard of a writer called Jean-Marc L'Officier? He was a writer on notably Spectacular Spider-Man and other stuff in the 1980s. But he was living in the States, and he was married to his editor, who worked at Marvel. So it was a very different situation. So I had this difficulty. So in 1998, I created a magazine about American comics in my home country, a magazine called Comic Box. And it was met with instant success. And it lasted for a very long time. I mean, the first version lasted 3 years as a monthly, then disappeared, then came back in 2005, and only stopped this year. But in 2006, I was in London, because not only I was doing the comic book magazine, but I was also doing a lot of kid stuff, a lot of kid magazines, translated, adapted magazines from other countries that were running on the French market. And I was having a lunch with a company named Titan, which now does comics. At the time, they were only doing magazines and books. So Titan, I met with them and we had a pretty good lunch, and it was the talk was like very forgettable. It was about the Batman Kids magazine that finally we never did. But I was in London, and I took the opportunity to spend an extra day and meet with my friend David Hine. And Dave and I, we met a couple of years before in San Diego, thanks to a guy that I really owe a lot to, called Richard Starkings. And Richard, he's a man, I like to say that. Hi.
Yes. All right.
So Richard Starkings, at the time, he liked to organize breakfast on the Saturdays of the Comic-Con, where he would seat people next to each other. You never knew who you were going to be seated next to. And he would arrange, because he would say, oh, you would like this person, you would like this person. And one year I was seated next to Dave, and we got along pretty fine from like instantly. So we stayed in touch, and Dave was coming off Civil War X-Men, and he was about to start Spawn. Hi. I think there are more chairs over there. I was in London, and I said to Dave, hey, why don't we have breakfast? So we had breakfast, but the very morning before I went to see Dave, I got this strange dream of a dark Spider-Man that would be set in the 1930s. So I'm coming to the breakfast, and I tell Dave, I have this idea. Just got this idea. Like a dark Spider-Man would be Spider-Man Noir, and he's like wanted, and I had actually the scene for the first issue. If you read the first issue, you see police cars, and the Spider-Man Noir is on J. Jonah Jameson's desk, and J. Jonah Jameson is dead. I had just this. So I asked Dave, okay, what do you think about this? And he said to me, it sucks, it will never work. I say, okay, well, right now I'm just a journalist. I'm not the comic book writer, so you probably know better than I do. So I didn't think much. I took my train back to Paris, and remember it's 2006, so it was before iPhone, it was before most of smartphones, so when you wanted to open your emails, you had to wait until you got back home. You couldn't look at your email from your phone. So by the time I went back, Dave had changed his mind, and he said, wait a minute, I thought about it all day, maybe it's good. We just have to change it a little bit. Maybe we should make it more of a pulp Spider-Man. And I said, no, I want a noir Spider-Man. He said, okay, let Marvel decide. So we started creating the pitch, the initial pitch. And my strategy was, if I send the pitch myself, it will be immediately delayed. But if Dave sends it, Dave is already a Marvel creator. So being a Marvel creator, it was easier.
Sure.
He had access to editors. He had direct access to Joe Quesada, who was the editor-in-chief at the time. And so we prepared the pitch. And in January 2007, I was in New York. I had lunch with then director of marketing, Jim McCann, who's now a writer. And so I took him to lunch and I pitched him the idea. I say, okay, I'm working with Dave Hine. We have this thing. It's called Spider-Man Noir. What do you think? And Jim told me, and I will never forget this, he said, you didn't hear it from me, but it's exactly the thing that we want to hear right now at Marvel. So it was like literally the right man at the right time,
right,
at the right place. So I come out of the cafe, and I called up Dave and I said, Dave, are we ready with the pitch? And he said, I just have a few corrections and he can go today. He sent the pitch, and literally an hour later, Joe Quesada said, I like it. Let me pitch it to the other editors at the editors meeting next week. And a week later, it was done. We had an editor. And Dave sent it with Spider-Man Noir and Spider-Man Pulp. But Spider-Man Noir won. I was pretty happy. So that was the thing. And the way I looked at it is, it may have been my idea, it may have been my concept, but I chose to be the co-writer because Dave was a bigger name than I was, and it was a better strategy to be a part of a team where your book is published, your idea is published, rather than being on your own and see your idea not published.
Right.
And you never have to forget that comics are a collaborative medium. So whatever you do, you're a team. Find the other half of your team. That would be my first piece of advice. Find the other half of your team. Go and find somebody, just like I found Dave, who opened the door for me, and actually not only opened the door, but he taught me how to be a writer. Because of course I knew how to write, and the funny thing is that Dave is fluent in French. Dave is fluent in French, and would talk to everyone in French, but me. He refuses to speak in French with me because he said, "Oh no, your English is good enough. I don't want to speak French with you. I'd be ridiculous, and you're not ridiculous in English." So yeah, but it's one thing to know how to write for magazines, for press, but it's another thing to learn how to write for comics. And I had the best professors because we were doing this series and we had like constant conversations. And the good thing is, I was in Paris, he was in London. We only had 1 hour difference, so we could talk all the time. And we did. We talked all the time, and every time that there was possibility for us to meet, we would, so that it was absolutely not a burden. It was absolutely a pleasure to have those regular phone meetings with Dave on Spider-Man Noir.
Nice. Okay, so the next question is, what are some of your biggest hurdles in the business?
What's the biggest hurdle?
Obstacles, so to say.
There are so many.
No crying.
What?
No crying.
No, I'm not crying. I think this is, when you work for the big companies, the biggest problem you have is getting information. Marvel is a big company and sometimes a strange company. As in, when people work for them, it's on a need-to-know basis.
Okay.
You don't know anything about anything. Like when we were doing Spider-Man Noir, we thought we were the only ones doing a noir book. We had absolutely no idea there would be other noir books. And once we wrapped the first 4 issues, the first miniseries, they stopped communicating with us, and we didn't even know when if the series was to be published. We had to wait for almost a year for the series to be done, to be published. Because we finished writing it in probably May or June 2007. And it was only published in December 2008. Now, in retrospect, I think that once they saw what we came up with, they asked other teams to bring other ideas, and they were just waiting to have enough books to create a whole line. But that's just my theory. It was never confirmed by the editors. Nobody was talking. So it reached a point where the editor was not even answering our emails or phone calls. So I remember in the summer 2008, Dave and I were, Dave and I were in San Diego for Comic-Con, and I said to him, I know our editor will be there, let me get a hold of him. So, ironically, our editor on Spider-Man Noir is now the editor-in-chief of Valiant, Warren Simmons. So, we caught Warren on the Marvel booth, and I said to him, "Where's the damn book?" And he said to me with his like very deep voice, "Dude, watch previews in 6 weeks." Okay, that's it. Yeah. I met the Riddler. No offense, Warren. I like Warren actually, but yeah, that we had no information. So I came back to Dave and he said, "What did he say?" And I said, "He just said, look at previews in 6 weeks." And 6 weeks, not even 6 weeks, 5 weeks later, I was buying, I don't even remember which comics I was buying. So I opened it and there was an ad for X-Men Noir. And I said, "What the fuck? There's an X-Men Noir, where's the book?" And the week after, all the Noir series were announced early September for a December release. And that was it. But it was like no communication, no information. We were like freaking out. We thought, because there was all these stories at the time of many books from many creative teams that were shelves for years. I mean, I remember Daniel Way talking about books that were shelves, even they were completely done, finished, paid, and never released. So because they changed their minds. So I was wondering if our book would have the same fate. And it's very disturbing because you don't know where you're at. But finally it was released, and thankfully we were the most successful of the line. And you probably understand now that of all the Noir books, only Spider-Man Noir survived. And that is for one reason. It was not done the same way as the others. The others were all at another editor, and I don't remember his name, but he oversaw the 4 other Noir books, but ours were still with Warren, and then Alejandro Arbona, who was his assistant at the time, and they only had one, so they took care of it. Took much care of it, and it was great. We had a very good relationship with Alejandro, and he loved the book, and he suggested a lot of things. It was a great creative partnership with Marvel, but we just didn't have any information. That was disturbing. So that was the hurdle. Lack of communication. And then, as I ventured into create our own series, I would say is the lack of support from retailers, distribution, publishers. You have to do everything by yourself. Yeah. And I learned the hard way because I had a book at Image called One Hit Wonder, and that I released in 2014, 2015. But I was far, and that was like when I clicked, like, I can't stay in my home country if I want to be serious about my career. I have to be in my market. And my market is here. So it was very clear that I had to relocate from Paris to New York. But even with that, there are still issues. I mean, with how the market works, maybe we'll talk about it, how the market works, how the publishers work. And you learn a lot of lessons when you do create your own books.
Yep. And you cry a lot.
And you cry a lot. Yes. But you also have a lot of love from people who come to see you at shows and who communicate with you online, and this is great.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so what do you think the future of comic books as a medium? What do you have any opinions on the future?
Oh, I have plenty of opinions.
Okay, let's hear them.
I think that the system as it is will run its course and will ultimately die like the dinosaurs, but it will run its course. We can't do anything about it.
Right.
Everyone who has tried to change the system failed.
Right.
So my number one rule is don't try to change the system. Create your own system.
Right.
And that's the thing I'm working on right now. Is creating. I always take this Tron metaphor. You can't compete on Clue's grid because Clue will win. So if you want to win, you have to create your own grid. So we're creating our grid.
Right.
And I'm talking to a lot of creators right now who have exactly the same problem. Like, we can't survive in a system that was made for 5 publishers.
Right.
The premier publisher. Do you know what the premier publishers are? The premier publishers are a club, very small club, which includes DC, Image, Marvel, Dark Horse, and IDW. This club benefit from advantages at Diamond, the main distributor in this business, and it's not fair competition for the others. There are a lot of problems, a lot of things that they have access to and the others don't, especially when it comes to retailers, when it comes to returns, when it comes to promotion, publicity, and a lot of things. So when you observe the market and how it works, there are very strange ways in the comic book, in the American comic book distribution system. So the best way to change it is to create a new one that is fairer. And that's the goal right now. That's how I see the future.
Okay. Good. So we're going to take this moment to open up the questions to the audience. Anybody have any questions for Maurice? Oh, wow. Okay. Let's start with James.
Hi. I just had a question regarding distribution.
Yeah.
So when a person decides to self-publish their own work, could you kind of take us a little bit step by step through the actual distribution process dealing with the retailers?
Oh, you mean the existing?
Yeah. Well, currently what we have now and the
What
version
we-
that you're thinking of.
What we have now is a system where you need either to have a publisher or be a publisher. But if you want to be a publisher, you have to understand that you can be turned down immediately by Diamond because either you're not moving enough copies, B, they're not interested, C, you don't have enough money, and D, they don't know you. Very simple. So this thing is not for, it was not designed for little publishers, for small publishers. It was not designed at all for that. They like to have small publishers because, ironically, the small publishers pay for the big ones. That's true.
Good point. Yeah, you're right.
So, and it's exactly the same thing as when you see celebrities getting gifts. Celebrities don't need gifts. They have money. They could pay for it. But they have gifts. How is it working? How bizarre, okay? But brands are giving those gifts to celebrities because they expect exposure. Like, they will wear the t-shirt, they will use the phone, they will make some it's free publicity. Okay, so imagine that some kind of twisted version of it is in comics, and it's like that. You're giving all the goodies to the big publishers who don't need it, because they don't need the money. But the small publishers have to pay full price. When you go to a convention, it's exactly the same. The guests are the big names. They could pay for their own ticket. They don't. And the independent artists are paying their tables full price. Same thing. So yeah, this is a problem, and unfortunately the system is as it is. Again, we can't change it, so we have to accept it as it is, let it be, and create a new one. And in this new one, what will we do? Well, first, a different split, because right now, when you're doing a book at a publisher, I would say as a creator-owned book. Well, first, as a creator-owned book, a lot of publishers are claiming that they're doing creator-owned. Some are actually not doing creator-owned. I've read contracts that I turned down from publishers that I won't name where they say, oh, your book is a creator-owned book. You can come to us and we'll publish you. But basically, when you sign with us, you can't be with another publisher until we give it up. So what's the point in having a creator-owned if you're tied with a publisher for the rest of your life?
Right.
This is just bad business, okay? So even creator-owned is a jungle. A lot of publishers will exploit artists, creators, and they will just say, okay, we want your book, but we don't want to pay you. That's basically what they do. And they're offering you like what they call the back-end deals. The back-end deals is like, oh, no advance, but rest assured, you will have a big percentage. What's the percentage? I don't know, 40, 50, 60% maybe on what is sold. The problem is, and that's the problem of the market actually, is when you're a creator, nothing can happen without you, but you're at the bottom of the food chain. When you put a book in the hands of a publisher and it goes on the market, you will have to do all the promotion yourself, because that's now like understood that the creators have to do all the work because the publishers don't want to do that. And second, everybody will get paid before you. So the first one which get paid is the distributor, Diamond. So Diamond gets the biggest cut and is paid first. Then the publisher is paid. Then the printer is paid. Then if something's there, you have the crumbs. And you have to be very happy of what you have, okay? That's the problem today. I mean, when the market was healthy and books were shifting hundreds of thousands of copies, nobody cared. Everybody was making money. But now that the market is more difficult, especially with the floppies, and the graphic novels are sold with returns. Like, it's not like the direct market. Everybody knows what the direct market is? Okay. The direct market, every copy that is printed is sold. But with the books, it's not the case. Copies are returnable, so you don't know what you're going to sell. So there's a risk, and a greater risk, you understand that the publisher, knowing that risk, will have to be compensated by the risk he takes on your book. That you can understand. But why on the direct market? Why would everybody would be paid before you? There's no logic in that. And it's not, it's insane. It's not fair, okay? So, and I always say this, you've never seen a publisher or an editor starving. Never. But there are a lot of creators starving. Every year we're losing hundreds of creators that leave the business because they can't make it. These are talents that are wasted forever. We have to stop this right now. That's the thing. So how I see the future? I see the future as in creators have to take care of themselves. So creators have to organize, and I'll do my part. I'm actually working on a system. Creators have to take care of themselves and take care of others. That's what Ramon does, for example.
Sure.
And that's the only way, because when you sign with a big publisher, there will always be a point where you will be disappointed. And there will always be a point where you expect things and it will never turn out the way you think. So stop expecting, start acting. There's nothing for you there. As a younger generation, there's nothing for you in that system. Nothing. The best deal out there is Image Comics. But how many people can have that deal right now? They receive probably 100 proposals a day. And there's just one guy, Eric Stevenson, who reads them. Because Eric's the boss and he wants to approve personally, which I understand, but he doesn't have the time, so you have to wait. When I signed my creator-owned book at Image, it took me 9 months to be on schedule for publication. 9 months. Not because they didn't want to. They already signed the contract, the book was approved, no problem. It's just that it took that much time for one of the slots in the image roster to free from another series from my book to come in.
Got it.
And they can do unlimited books. It's impossible.
Sure.
I've been saying for years that there would be room for another image, but the problem is nobody wants to do it. Why? Because all the money goes through creators. And then if you're a publisher, you want money. So they started offering different kind of deals where it's not full creator owned, but half creator owned, where they will ask you for 50% of your creation or 50% of your royalties, and then it's a different story. Like, oh, we're gonna share the risk, you and I, because we're partners. But in the end, which partner loses and which partners win? Creators are always losing because we have no control over anything, just on the creative side. So again, why do we need publishers? We only need publishers if they do something for us. So the question that you should ask the publisher is, what do you do for me? What can you do for me? What will you do for me? If you really love my book, will you fight for it? Will you fight for it as much as I will fight for it? If I'm standing off like 50% of my rights, I expect you to to be as motivated as I am. That's never the case. So think about it.
Okay.
That was the first question.
Okay, that's one behind.
Oh, me?
Yeah, what's your name, sir?
Name is John. And,
John.
And I suppose my question is, you mentioned how earlier the publishers are the 5 big companies and all.
Yeah.
But,
Premier publishers.
Yeah, the
Premier Club.
Yeah, the Premier Club. And I guess my question is, I mean, I've been like looking at some of the stuff recently. I mean, I've been seeing how Marvel's been like losing sales to the whole trying to appease a certain group with some of their.
Oh, you shouldn't say that because you don't know the whole story.
Yeah, there's a lot behind that.
I know. I know. I'm saying that.
Yeah, and you should stop reading stuff online.
Yes. Yes.
On Facebook.
Yeah. Like Facebook's giving you the visual service.
Yeah, it's like comic book numbers. Everybody say, oh, this book has sold this, and nobody knows the real numbers. I'm gonna tell you this. It's all a lie. It's all fake. Like, it's based on estimates, based on some kind of numbers and these estimates are based, they have like, Batman is the reference. It's been referenced for like 20 years. And from the numbers of Batman, they kind of figure out the rest, but it's very inaccurate, very, very much. So sometimes you will see sales like, oh, this book sells 14,000, but actually it sells 25,000, and you will never know about it. Sometimes you will have a book that will sell like 5,000, and it will sell 10, or it will sell 3, and you don't know anything about it. That's how inaccurate it is. They never give you an error margin. These charts are fake. These numbers are fake. So you shouldn't trust her or take them with a grain of salt, because really, only the creators, only the studios can give you the real numbers, and nobody does.
Yeah.
Nobody does. I mean, I could tell you the numbers of my creator-owned books. I'm not ashamed of it, but that's.
Anyone else, they'll be like, oh.
You don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know. And also, nobody knows. I mean, there are still some newsstands selling books. There are still some Barnes & Noble selling comic books. These are not included in the charts. There are still some, and the subscriptions, there are still some subscriptions. They're not counted in the charts. The digital sales are not counted in the charts, and nobody knows anything about the digital sales. This is just incredible. You have this company called Comixology, and I know them very well, some of my friends. They will never disclose any numbers. And I was talking about this with one guy I know at DC Comics, and he said to me, why would we release the numbers? We don't need people to know. We do whatever we want. We're a privately owned company. We're not the government. True.
One day.
It's a little scary.
One day.
I guess it's a little scary though, the way, you know, like you said.
No,
Yeah,
that's the
it's
truth. That's
Oh, it's
the
understandable.
basic truth. They don't have to. I mean, so when you see gossip or when you see numbers appearing online, be very, very careful about what you say about those numbers.
All right.
Because you only know a third or a quarter of the story.
All right.
Okay? What was your question again?
I'm
sorry.
That's fine. I guess I was gonna ask about partly about the distribution, partly about with portfolio. Say you go like any sort of company, like small, big. I guess what do you bring like a what do you bring?
Okay.
You know, like,
So if you want to get noticed by a publisher or an editor,
any anyone what will I bring? I mean, I've got some written stuff, but and some like
wait,
art stuff.
are you an artist?
More artist than writer, but yeah.
Okay. So this is now the time for me to introduce Chris. Chris Allo here is a former Marvel talent manager, and he did that. He did a lot of portfolio reviews. So if you want to say a word, Chris.
Sure. In terms of an artist is a lot easier to get their work noticed because it's very visual. It's all right there. You know, if you
Yeah.
put it on board, paper, whatever. So an editor, talent manager, whatever the structure is. You can go to a convention. You can go to maybe little get-togethers like this and show off your work. And an editor can look at it. You know, if they're a good editor, they can probably tell off the bat that you're a good storyteller, that you know anatomy, that you basically know how to draw sequentially, and then it's kind of there. Getting work, that's the whole other story. For a writer, it's much more difficult because even at a convention when there's more time,
Especially at conventions.
Yeah. Somebody, I mean, an editor or a talent manager or whatever can't sit there and read your 25-page manuscript because it's just not feasible. So, I mean, traditionally the way you get into Marvel, DC, Image, whatever, is you get your work published in a smaller place and start building your
reputation,
your portfolio, your work, and just start getting noticed hopefully by bigger companies. But now with Image, it's kind of like seems to be a little bit of a reverse. Like now people go to Marvel, get their big projects, and then leave and go to Image and get their create your own book together where they own rights.
Well, my recommendation, John, would be do your own thing. Don't count on anyone. Make it as big as you can. And if they're really interested, they will fetch you. But turn your back on them right now. Like, erase them from, it's like the magic trick. Stay in your own, stay in your lane, and don't worry about any of the big studios. The big studios are a distraction to your creativity right now.
All right, that's all right. Then I mean, I always see some of my friends receive like guys like you. I guess I see all the big stories. And I'm like, I have stuff. I'm always worried who will know? How do I get noticed? I guess.
Well, I get this question all the time, and I'm going to tell you something very basically. The best and the worst thing that happened to me is having my first ever professional published work at Marvel. That's the best and the worst thing that happened to me. That's the best because you killed the fanboy in you. Like, you're not looking for that dream anymore because it's done. I can die now. Okay? I'm forever the co-creator of a Marvel character. I can die happy. And it brings people to my tables at show. But at the same time, I'm happy that it happened early because I could focus on the important thing, which is developing my own library of character, creating the stories that I want to write. And it's always the same. I mean, if you hear how Image started as a frustration. They were frustrated over Marvel for some good reasons, like editorial control, money, royalties, a lot of problems, okay? These problems still exist to this day, okay? And if people tell you that the word is different in comics, it's another lie.
Yep.
It's just other words, but it's the same thing, okay? So when you venture into your creator own, of course you will not have the exposure, of course you will not be every week on Bleeding Cool or Comics Beat or CBR or whatever, but at the same time, I'm gonna tell you something. You'll make more money as an independent than with the studios. Because if you look at it that way, if you go to Marvel, you will have a page rate, and if you're lucky, you will have a very, very small royalty rate, okay, like 0.05% over the sales in the United States. Not the rest of the world, just in the United States, okay? And it's already great, because before Image, Marvel didn't offer this. DC did, but Marvel didn't. So this is something that came after. Why? Because after the 90s, and when Joe Quesada took over, Joe Quesada is an artist. So he understands the need of an artist. And Joe Quesada started where? He started at DC, of course, but he did his own thing. He had a company named Even Comics, and he was doing his own thing. Before he went to Marvel, he was an independent publisher with his own book, with his own series, and it was creator owned. So that's exactly on point. That's why you have to do creator owned, because creator owned will give you the freedom, will give you also time to experiment things that you couldn't do at studios, and find yourself, like really be the better version of the writer or the artist you want to be, because you have time.
All right.
Okay.
One, I guess, is related to it. Then, if I want to rise on my own power and I mean, say I'm the writer, say I'm the artist, say I'm a little both. How do I like like you said earlier about finding your other half or something? How
Yeah.
How exactly do I just fish and see who would fit best with me? To get to help me.
Well,
build?
don't stalk anyone, okay? Start like this. Don't stalk anyone. Don't be rude. Approach creators you like. Start engaging conversation, befriending people. Go to bars at conventions, whenever there's bars. It's less and less right now. And try to find the people you get along with. And it will come organically. You don't need to force it. You just have to, you see an opportunity, you take it. It would not work for everyone. It worked for me, but it will not work for everyone. And then after, you're on your own. But let me tell you something. That's how I believe comics were designed as a collaborative medium. They should stay that way. They should always stay that way. 3 years ago, I had this challenge because writing was not enough, lettering, designing was not enough for me. I had to draw. So I started drawing, and I started teaching myself how to draw. And it took me 3 years to go to not a good level, but a decent level, okay? One day I'll be good. Not now, I'm decent. Decent enough for my shit to be sold at shows and in sales, okay? But I'll never draw my own comics, because that would be wrong. When I'm the writer, I'm the writer. When I'm the artist, I'm the artist. I'm not John Byrne. I'm not Jack Kirby. I'm not that talented. But when I put my mind to something, I want to go all the way and do my best on one side of the job and leave it to another. And working with another head, working with another pair of hands, is always going to make your comic book stronger. And you know the famous sentence, like, too many cooks in one kitchen?
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't apply to us. Because actually, if you have more than one cook, you have a better dish.
Good point.
Okay, young lady in the back.
Hi. You mentioned that when you started in France, you had your own comic or your own publication.
No, it was a magazine.
A magazine.
Yeah.
So when you started your magazine, how did you distribute it and sell it? How
The
did it
magazine?
how did it become a success? And the other question is, has anyone attempted to start a comics cooperative or collective so that they can do an alternate distribution and printing system,
Yeah.
which has nothing to do with, you know, Marvel or DC or anyone,
Yeah.
and you know they create their
Okay.
own.
When I started the magazine, the distribution system in France is very different from the distribution system here. In France, there are cooperatives which control the distribution circuit, and all the networks are connected. Okay, so the distribution for the magazines is two companies, two cooperatives. And these cooperatives, one belongs to the French state, and the other one is privately owned, but they both work together. And it's an open distribution system. Like when you distribute a magazine or a comic book through the newsstands, it's only through the newsstands, okay? When you distribute it, you go to the distributor, you say, hey, I want to distribute a magazine or a comic book. Okay, how many? 25,000. Okay. You understand that it's fully returnable? Yes. What's the rate? 55, 56, 60%, whatever. Okay. Well, you'll be paid in 120 days, and that's it. You deliver to the distribution hub, and the distribution hub will split and distribute to the newsstands, and that's it. It's very simple. Okay, it's that simple. Now, the book distribution system in France is way different. It's closer to the book distribution system here, but it's even worse. Like here, when you publish a comic book or a graphic novel, and even if your book is returnable, your book can stay on shelves for a few weeks, even a few months. They will not return it right away, okay? They will take their time, and okay, even though it's less now than it used to be, they will still take their time. In France, this is a bigger market and a smaller market at the same time. We're talking about a market that has 6,000 comics, French and American and Japanese comics, 6,000 new comics published every year, okay? This is a lot for that market. Here, the numbers are different. There are probably 300 monthly comics released every month, okay? And the graphic novels, the market is booming. I don't even know the number. And I mean, it's growing every day. But these books are returnable. The structure of the market is also very different. It's very brick and mortar. In France, you have a lot of stores, while here, most of it is Amazon and eBay and like online distribution channels, and you only have a few independent stores or a few Barnes and Nobles that are left. So this is really, really different. But in France, since you have a lot of stores, they don't have a lot of space. So your book stays, if it doesn't sell the first week, after 2.5 weeks, it's gone. So your exposure is literally 2.5 to 3 weeks. And then they will return your book, and it's dead. That's how competitive it is. So you have to sell immediately. And this is really hard because the distribution doesn't help you. Why? Because in France, the distributors, most of the distributors, there are a lot of, it's not like Diamond, like there's one distributor. There are like 7 or 8 distributors, and most of them are controlled by publishers. So when they take you in one pocket, they will take a chunk in another pocket. Like the publisher will say, oh, I'm sorry, your book didn't work. We can't pay you. We don't have any more money for you. But they made a lot of money on the distribution side that you will never see. And it's not the only country that works like that. In Italy, it's the same. In Spain, it's the same. So it's really different. So when people complain about Diamond or Simon & Schuster or all the big distributors, be careful. It's not a perfect system, far from that, but there's worse. And you don't want your book to be exposed for just 2 weeks. You want your books to be available for as long as possible. Amazon will grant you that, but in a giant store like Amazon, you will have to do all the work because it's impossible to have a spontaneous, purchase because people will never see your book if you don't publicize it yourself. or if you pay somebody to publicize it for you. But again, it's a question of money, and it's a question of how much do I have in my pocket for my own promotion. Did I answer your question?
Yes, and what about the collective, cooperative, any attempts have been made?
Yes. So there have been in the past, and there are some smaller distributors that nobody talks about. That's true.
Yeah.
Very small. They're trying as hard as they can, but you have to understand that either for the book market or the comic book direct market, there's some resistance because Diamond is such a force and offers such a vast array of possibilities for a retailer, and considering the number of books that retailers have to deal with every week, it's very hard for them to think straight about other possibilities. They're in a fast train, and I'm not like throwing anything at them because it's very hard to be a retailer. It's very hard to be a retailer, especially these days. They have to make money, they're fighting every day for their survival, and it's very hard. And again, when you come and you complain and say, hey, and I would be the first one to complain and say, hey, why don't you have my book? Why don't you carry my book? Why didn't you order my book? Which book is it? They're under floods of books because the big publishers have been playing with fire for years. So, of course, and I'm going to tell you this book, Intertwine, okay? Issue 1 was released October 5th, 2016. That same week, Marvel decided to relaunch their whole line. There was, in October 2016, 100 books from Marvel and 97 from DC. And you have retailers who told me, I'm sorry, but these books are returnable, not yours. And others will say, I didn't even see your book. Where was it? Dynamite? Oh, I don't buy Dynamite. Yeah. That's how it is. You can be angry about it, you can be nervous about it. You'd rather like get up and do something. That's what I'm doing. Because if you just stay angry and say, oh, damn market, damn Marvel, damn DC, they're not responsible. They're playing their part. This is a business. So when you see people ranting online, this is wrong. Just do something.
Okay, gentleman with the white shirt.
So I wanted to ask, kind of go back into the whole be creative without changing the system. Because for me personally, it's like I have two ideas in mind. One of creating a whole new universe, a whole set of characters. And the other thing is like kind of the other concept I have is adding to a universe that's already there. Like
Yeah.
putting my own like imprint on something that's already there.
Oh my God.
Which I feel like is
What I did.
yeah.
Well,
it's almost like when you go in.
I didn't have to do anything about it. Remember, I just came, Dave and I, we came with a concept, and Marvel said, hey, it's great, let's create a whole line around it. So, but we had no control over it. You just give it with all, you hit them with all you got, and then you cannot even hope of anything. You know, when we started working on Spider-Man Noir, our example was Elseworlds. Do you remember Elseworlds?
Yeah.
These were the parallel universes at DC Comics.
Yeah.
But they had been like out of date, out of fashion. Nobody was publishing them anymore. But we were very, very fond of them, Dave and I. We talked a lot about Elseworlds. And we wanted to do the Marvel Elseworlds. And when we arrived with Spider-Man Noir, we had like a dozen other Marvel characters that we wanted to put in their system. Marvel didn't even ask for it.
Right.
Marvel didn't want to hear about it because they had their own plans. And that's okay, it's their characters.
But it's different only because I feel like you have that kind of, you have more of a connection into Marvel to get your foot in the door. You have that.
No,
kind of,
well, I'm stopping you right here.
Okay.
Having your foot in the door is absolutely useless because it's hard to get in, but it's harder to stay in.
Right.
And I'm going to tell you something, a funny story. After we did the 2 Spider-Man Noir miniseries, my phone didn't ring, my email didn't blink, nothing happened. I took care of myself, Dave took care of himself, and the artists who were on the book took care of themselves, but they don't call you back after. You have to do it yourself. You have to do the work. nobody's going to fetch you. Nobody's going to fetch you if you don't do anything. So you might have been published by Marvel, but then what? And it took me 2 years to understand that. After I did the second Spider-Man Noir series, I couldn't write a single line for 2 years. Because I was like, what do I do now? Like, I achieved the dream. What do I do? It's impossible for me to process this. So I started writing. I wrote a book on the French market. It was a kid's book on wrestling. Very forgettable. The only good thing is that I could work with a British artist that I really love called Jack Lawrence. Cartoony artist. I really love his style. And he's a wrestler fan. Like he loved wrestling. So I remember he was in my office in Paris one day and said, hey, because at first we interviewed his boyfriend. And then when his boyfriend, I don't know if he broke up with his boyfriend or his boyfriend didn't want to do it because he felt he didn't have the legs for it. He said, hey, I want to do it. I'm a wrestling fan. So, okay, yeah, we have Jack Lawrence. And this guy is super fast. He can draw like 16 pages in a week.
Wow.
So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's a rare.
16.
16, that's a rare.
Yeah. So I couldn't do that. And then after that, I did a book that is still unpublished in the US, but I have all the rights to, with veteran artist Tom Lyle. It was a 67 pages book, 3 issues, that was released on the French market only. And that book was a bittersweet experience because when the French publisher approached me, they say, hey, I want to do Image in France. Like what? Like create your own? Yeah, create your own. But he never signed the contracts. So I was disappointed, and he chose a distributor, and this is where I understood how distribution worked, because I was every month pushing the book at the distributor's level. So I was going to that room with 400 representatives, and these representatives didn't give a fuck about my book. They just wanted to go to lunch or to their coffee. That's exactly the same thing at Diamond. When you go to the representative, they don't care about you. They have, remember, the previous catalog is 1,200 pages. When a retailer hits page 400, he only has done so little of what he has to do. So this is the cruel thing. That's why it brings me back to distribution problems. Your career as a creator, when you're doing a book, hangs in the balance. It depends on the amount of milliseconds a retailer has to dedicate to your book on a page. This is insane. You will put all your blood, sweat, and tears into a book, and then in 20 milliseconds, a retailer can order 0, 1, 5, 10 copies, or any copies. It's not even in your hands. It's like going, it's like being in a slaughterhouse. You're waiting in line and you don't even know how you're gonna get slaughtered. That's exactly that. That's crazy, right? That's how the distribution system works right now. So I don't even remember the question, but yeah, after I did that book, I couldn't do anything. And it took me a while to figure out what to do. And then I had the idea. That's good for you too. I remember when I said, find your partner. Well, that could also be an artist, right? You find a big talent that you convince with your idea. That's what I did. When I did One Hit Wonder, I had Ariel Olivetti. Ariel was just out of his Marvel contract. He wanted to work with a European writer. And I knew Ariel for years ago. We did a festival in France together, and we got along pretty fine. And he said to me, do you know somebody who would write something for me? I said, yes, me. Right now. He said, okay, throw me some pitches. And I threw him like 4 or 5 pitches. And actually he said on a pitch that I really liked. But this is not the one we ended up doing, because in the meantime, I went to San Diego, and on the plane back, I had the idea for One Hit Wonder. And when I came back, I said, Ariel, I have this idea of One Hit Wonder. It's a child actor who becomes a hitman for the mafia. Deal.
Ramon has a question.
What you do with Ariel work for hire?
What I did for what?
What's your deal with Ariel work for hire?
My deal with Ariel was very strange. So at first, my idea was always to go to Image, okay, with the book. So I talked to the guys at Image and say, well, we never had Ariel Olivetti at Image. Yeah, and let's be honest, they didn't take the book because of me, take the book because of him. So it's the same thing. It's a strategy. You're like, you have an artist in your hand, and that artist is a bigger name than yours, and you're just going to do a good operation, a smart move. So so I created the book, and I had a French publisher in my pocket, a very small French publisher. So I said to that French publisher, okay, will you do that book with me and Ariel Olivetti? He said, Ariel Olivetti? Yes, now. So can you pay half of the book, and I will pay half of the book, and then we will pay Ariel, because Ariel's pay is not standard pay, okay? It's like higher pay. But it was still creator-owned. Then after 2 issues, Ariel had to leave because he was going through personal issues. So he said to me, you can have it back. It's all yours. I mean, I'm not going to say anything about it. You can have it back. And he did 2 issues, and he did the layout for the 3rd one. Okay? That's how I got Ariel. And Ariel got me into Image. Again, it's the same thing like with Dave. Dave got me to Marvel. Ariel got me to Image. And I stuck myself into Dynamite by myself, which is like dumb.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
okay, so coming from a slightly different standpoint, because I do the art and the writing, I'm just a one-person thing, so maybe not.
You're an OMAC.
Yes, I'm an OMAC. Okay, so there's big publishers and then there's small publishers, and a lot of them have, you know, a link for open unsolicited submissions. They all have different rules. Do you think that it's smarter to just basically pitch your comic yourself, or do you think that it's smarter to find an agent to pitch it for you? How useful are, you know, literary agents in the comics world?
That's a good question. Chris, what do you think about literary agents?
I'm trying to remember at Marvel,
guys like Dave Campini or...
Well, I mean, those are, you mean people who represent writers or artists?
Writers?
There were definitely a lot of people who represented artists. Not a lot, but there was definitely a group.
And usually because the artists don't speak the language.
Yeah, but it's someone who is just able to say, okay, you know, I have this book, you know, like let's say I am able to convince some agent that my book is good, and then the agent says, I want to pitch this entire book. Not me as an individual creator, but again, just this book, because it's a whole complete thing. Is that something that happens? Is that something that would be useful for me to do, or?
I think
it sounds like kind of an Image thing where you bring the entire project.
Yeah, I mean, I think you would waste your money.
Okay.
Basically, I mean, because if you are going to an agent, number one question: how many agents are there in the comic book business? There are a lot of agents for novels. There are a lot of agents for movies, for music, for anything. How many agents for comics? Like not a lot. Yeah, that I can name like 2, but yeah, if you say 5, say 5. It's something that is more European. In Europe, you can find more, but here, I don't see the point. The market is very accessible. I mean, when you go to a show, you have access to all the talent. This is pretty unique. You have to understand that our industry is open. It looks closed, but it's open actually. You can talk to me. You can talk to a lot of people. You go to a show. I'm going to Boston tomorrow. I mean, if you come to the Boston Comic Con, or if you go to New York Comic Con in 2 months, you will be able to talk to every artist that has a table. It will never be rude with you. It will never say you suck. Sometimes you will say you suck.
Yeah, so I'm about to say sometimes it does happen.
So we'll have to take it. But yeah, I mean, this is pretty unique. So you can actually build your own dream. You can build your own career. You don't need an agent. I mean, if you just need to open your mind, listen, take notes, and do your stuff. Well, I'm going to tell you something, because that will also answer one of your questions. There's a guy that I really respect. His name is Tim Daniel. He's doing a lot of independent comics. And he worked for a variety of small publishers. he did one thing that was pretty ballsy. He wanted to do Star Wars. He knew that Marvel wouldn't let him do Star Wars. So he hired an artist, and he said to this artist, "You will never get paid, but we will do Star Wars online for free." Because the only way to do licensed things for free, the licensed thing is to do it for free when you're not. So if you want to do a Spider-Man comic, do it for free. Marvel cannot stop you because you will not take advantage of their brand. You will not exploit their brand. It's free. So if it's free, it's like art prints. I'm very against art prints. I'm doing art prints myself, but I'm very against it. Why? Because it's ripping off a company of its revenue. Mm-hmm. So what I do is when I'm doing licensed characters such as Spider-Man Noir, because I draw Spider-Man Noir, I offer it to people. I say, it's free, buy my book.
Smart.
We'll kind of piggyback off of that, but and I wanted to ask this before, because I was thinking about that as well.
Yeah.
Because if it's free, yeah, I can't get sued if I decide
You
to
can't
go
get
with
sued
something
because you will not take
Is it
any
considered
profit from
as
it.
serious with fan fiction type of thing? Is it considered
It's
more
kind of fan fiction, but if you do, again, be professional is not being an amateur. It's very different. That's something that all you guys need to understand. There are a lot of comics, even published comics, that are not up to the standards of the industry. Like, the design is awful. People use Comic Sans.
Wait, use comic what?
Comic Sans.
Oh.
The design is awful.
Do they stack panels?
The covers is
on
awful.
page?
The coloring sucks. And the lettering, I don't even want to talk about it. So that's the problem. That's the problem. You're not necessarily a designer yourself, but being able to do a good comic is to learn how to surround yourself with people who know.
Right.
People who are professionals in their minds, not necessarily with their everyday job. They might have a day job, but they act professionally. They know the tools, they know the ways, they know the structure, they know it. If you look professional, people will look for you. Because let's be honest, if you go to a convention, and apart from the characters that are in the media, like the Marvel and DC characters, nobody knows which characters are in which company anymore.
Yeah.
It's very blurred. So when you understand your book or another book, if it attracts the eye, if it has a chance to be on the stands, but if it's on the shelf, you have to do your show. If it's professional enough, people will look at it. Not necessarily buying it at first because they don't recognize the name or they don't, but that's a possibility. You can also commission a cover from a very big talent. Do that, and you will make sure that you will have instantly more exposure. You have a lot of talent that will agree to do that because they support independent books. I mean, for Intertwine, and that's not because I'm connected, of course I am, but I had 20 artists doing illustrations for me, and like A-list, A talent, okay? Because I just asked. I asked politely. Sometimes I couldn't offer a lot of money, but I offered what I could, and they understood it. And it was like, for example, I mean, there are people like Olivier Coipel who's my friend, so it's different because we have this friendship for a long time. But somebody like Patrick Zurcher, and I always loved Patrick because A, he was doing the covers for Spider-Man Noir, and damn good covers. And second, he's very underrated. A lot of people don't understand how good he is. This guy is a beast. He's a beast. He can draw anything. He's not late. And he's really a good artist. But nobody whispers his name. He's not like a hot artist, but he deserves it. So I approached him. It's the first person I contacted for Intertwine. I said, I want a pin-up from you, but I can only pay you $250. So here's my deal. I pay you $250, and if it becomes a cover for the book, I double it up. He said fair. But Dynamite never picked his illustration. But I'm telling you, his illustration is one of the most beautiful that we have for the book. But you won't see it in the volume because it's for one of the Kickstarter rewards that is not ready yet. But it's like, yeah. And
Sorry, it's Kickstarter still, is it still possible to get those Kickstarter rewards?
not on my book. You can buy this, which is the Kickstarter edition of my book. I mean, the retail edition from Dynamite won't be in stores until August 22nd. I have extra copies from the Kickstarter, and I'm selling them. The difference is 20 pages, 20 extra pages from the and a better paper, better paper stock.
Okay, gentlemen on the side.
I do have a lot of questions, but I don't want to take up anyone else's time. But here's something I do want to ask. We are in the golden age of like streaming content, like adapted content. Like a lot of books are being adapted into TV shows and movies. Does that cloud the creative process at all? Like when you think about like, oh, this could be a whatever show, AMC show.
I won't tell you that it never crossed my mind. It always does. But that's not the main drive. I got this advice. I remember when I was doing Comic Box, I interviewed Dave Gibbons. And Dave Gibbons, as you know, is the co-creator of Watchmen. And Dave Gibbons said to me, people refer to Watchmen as a graphic novel. Like it's a huge reference, it's a graphic novel. But what he said is like, they didn't even know the word when they were doing it. Because all they wanted to do is a fucking good comic. That's how he expressed it, a fucking good comic. And that's it.
Yeah.
So, and at the time, they couldn't even expect that it would be a movie one day. The special effects were different in 1985. But yeah, I mean, it plays a role, but it's not huge. You have to master your domain, and your domain is comics. So you have to do the best possible comic book. And then if it's good enough, other medias will take interest and they will call you.
Well,
Often they will be full of shit.
Yeah.
And they will never call you again and say, oh, we're super excited about your book. I had it twice with One Hit Wonder. 2 producers call me up and say, we love One Hit Wonder. Okay, good. Where's the contract? Vanished. That's Hollywood.
Yeah.
Do your thing. Do comic books. This is what we do. We're doing comic books. We're not in the business of selling rights. I mean, and frankly, as much as I love him as a person and as a businessman, I'm not Mark Miller. There's only one Mark Miller. Okay? And he's one of the most intelligent people in this industry. He has been for a long time.
Back in back. Back to yeah.
Do you, in terms of more of the writing process, do you have any suggestions or kind of guidelines as you're writing like a multi-issue arc?
Yeah. I mean, every writer has a different process. I remember having this conversation a few years ago with Kelly Sue DeConnick, and she said that when she was writing, she started by hearing the sounds, like the voices, the noises, and those whispers will inspire her the whole story. I thought it was pretty good of a process. My process is very different. I don't read comics anymore. Bam! I'm afraid of being influenced. So I only read nonfiction. And I draw all my ideas, and we're fortunate in this day and age we have smartphones. So I note when I'm in the subway or when I'm home, I note everything in my smartphone. And when I have an idea, when news can influence one of my scripts and all, and sometimes it's just bits and pieces, and one day it appears. But I never write any issue until it's all done in my head. I don't write a single line. When the issue is done in my head and the story is solid enough for me to write, I will write it down. I will never write it down before. I will never start a story without knowing the end of the story. So, of course, you could say, what if you forget? Well, if I forget, it's not good enough. So, if it's good, I don't forget.
Okay, in the front, right here.
Oh yes, I was at Robert Livingston, by the way. I was actually going to ask a question that was relating to the writing process that comes in terms, because I actually did read both of the Spider-Man Noir miniseries, both of mine. I did love them, but I was wondering.
But you didn't know the other books, right?
I didn't know One Hit Wonder, to be honest.
And Intertwined.
Actually, I saw that in the comic shop the other day.
Damn. So what?
I was gonna say is that when it came to writing out a story,
Yeah.
when it comes to like how would you put in like challenging your protagonist, so to speak, in a way that you feel like, you know, once you hit that climax of the story,
Yeah.
and you just feel like this is where it's hit, this is where everything has come together.
I have a perfect example for you. In 2014, Marvel called us back to write an issue of Spider-Man Noir in the Spider-Verse crossover. Okay, it was Edge of Spider-Verse #1. That was a huge challenge because the editor said, okay, it has to be a brand new Spider-Man Noir story. You have 20 pages, you have 3 weeks, and out of those 20 pages, you only have 19 because the last page ties to the crossover. So we had 19 pages to create a compelling story that stood on its own from top to bottom. And if you didn't know Spider-Man Noir, you had to understand it from the first panel. And we only had 3 weeks. But I think we did a good job because everyone was very happy with it. And when we sent to the editor, we only had 1 note. That was pretty good.
Wow.
So, but it was like riding a bike. I mean, we got back. I hadn't worked with Dave for 4 years. A lot of things happened in the meantime, but it was really pleasant to go back to this and trade ideas, and we got motivated, and it was like flowing, like we couldn't stop. And we had like probably 6 or 7 issues worth of material that came out of those sessions, and we had to pick up like 19 pages. So sometimes you need to make choices. And remember one thing. People always, especially in this day and age, a lot of people are all about decompressed storytelling. But remember that Amazing Fantasy 15, Spider-Man's origin was done in 12 pages. So if Lee and Ditko could do it, you can do it, I can do it. Just a question of discipline and make the right choices. It's like writing an essay. You pick the things that will have the most impact and you just put it in a certain order. It's very methodic, you know?
Oh yeah, I can relate because I mean, I've written like several scripts before, and I've had times where I would start rereading the script and I would start thinking, because I always make sure to set a page limit for myself,
Yeah.
which is, all right, I want this to be 15 pages, I want this to be 20 pages,
Yeah.
and then I need to decide, all right, how much of this is going to be devoted to the characterization and saying
And
the story.
that also is very important. Rely on your plot. Rely on your plot. The more solid the plot is, the better it is. Don't rely on dialogue. You're not Brian Bendis. I'm not either. There's only one Brian Bendis. Like there's only one Mark Miller. Brian is very good with that. He can write a whole story with like only dialogue, and you just don't give a fuck that it has no plot. You don't care because it's so good that, but only he can do that. Okay, in that fashion. You can't. You have to follow a certain set of rules, and the set of rules are be concise. Like try to keep your dialogues to a minimum. Like most of the comics that you read today have too much words.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
It's horrible.
You mean everyone trying to over-explain everything and shove everything into like 1 or 2 pages?
Yeah, I mean, we're not in the 1970s where Chris Claremont would use 10 pages full of captions and balloons to explain everything in the world before the X-Men. It's not anymore. It's not like that. Now, people are informed, and people read more comics and are more exposed to a lot of things. When you see an episode of Game of Thrones, sometimes you don't understand everything. You catch up, okay, and you understand. Even if some characters are even not talking, you should be able to do that in comics, because if you convey emotions, that's one of the main things. Comics should convey emotions. If you convey emotions in the best possible way, then you did a good job, because you barely need dialogue. Remember that a comic should be read without the bubbles. You should understand it without the bubbles.
Right over here.
Yes, I have a question, another question about the writing process. If you're only just a writer and you're looking for an artist, what do you give them? Do you give them a script, or do you give them a Bible? Do you give them a, like you said, comics are collaborative.
Yeah.
But like if I have this vision for a story, how do I communicate that to an artist, especially if
Okay, number one rule, don't be an asshole. Don't be an asshole, because, and it's funny because I work both, like what's the so-called Marvel way. Does anyone know what the Marvel way is?
No.
The Marvel way is you have a plot with a loose page breakdown, and then you give that to the artist. The artist will create the layouts from what you wrote, but it will be his personal interpretation, and then when it comes back, you add the dialogues, okay? When I was doing Black Box with Tom is a very old school creator. So he said to me, after I started doing full script, and he said, "Get out of my hair. I'm the visionary, I'm the director of this book. You're just a writer, okay? So let's do it the Marvel way, that's how I like it." And I said, okay, I never tried before, let's try it. Truth is, I should never have done this, because the book is not exactly the way I want it now. And years after, he told me, yeah, you were right. So what I'm doing is that I write full script with as much details as I can. And then I let the other creator take over, and I'm not saying anything. On One Hit Wonders, sometimes Ariel would send me pages, and they were very different from what I wrote. And I would say to him, "Why did you change this?" "Oh, I like it better." You don't say no to Ariel, everybody. You just comply, okay? You have to respect the other artists too. They bring something. On Intertwined, if you look at the book, and I know you can look at the book because I said it to you, Eric, it's never said anywhere, writer and artist. It's storytellers. And I like it better because there would be times where I was talking with Fred and it would be stuck on a page, and I would draw him something, and he would incorporate it into the book because he didn't see the scenes how I saw them. And there would be other scenes where he would say, "It doesn't work like that. Let me try something else, and we can discuss it after." And we like kind of ping pong, him and me, about the thing, and it made the book stronger. So it's really a collaborative work, and you have to take your time. You're not in a rush, especially in creating your own project. You're your own worst enemy. You don't have to be in a rush. Take your time, develop stuff with your artist, and it will only make the book stronger. You have to trust the person that works with you. That's the biggest deal. Like, trust the other person, or the other persons. There's also the colors.
All right, and relating to some of the whole other artists and also relating to, let's see, what you said about what he said about climax and how you reach the story.
Yeah.
I've read many books that say this way, that way, and one of the ways I guess I read was what one person called the Royal Road or something where
the Royal Road.
Yeah.
The Royal Way, you mean?
Yeah, the Royal Way.
Excuse my French.
The Royal Way by Araki, the guy who does JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. He talks about the rise and fall of a character, how you keep it going without getting stale. Give a character to rise and have them fall, or have them fall and make them rise again. With Spider-Man, no, I guess it would be a fall then a rise for him.
No. Well, first, let me tell you something. This story is not finished. This story is not finished. We were just not able to tell the story we wanted, because Marvel did the first 2 miniseries, then we were brought back for Edge of Spider-Verse, and then nothing. They gave the character to another writer. They incorporated it in a series called Web Warriors, and I couldn't recognize my own character. So this is just something else. Again, Marvel is free to do whatever they want with this character. It's their character. And you should never be pissed or complain about this. This is how it works. This is Marvel's way of doing things, okay? But if I were to come back to the book, if I were to come back to the book with Dave, we would finish the story we started. And the story we started at had 3 distinctive arcs plus different stories that we wanted to insert in the middle. That's why when we did Edge of Spider-Verse, we chose to set the action in 1940, because it was 6 years after the end of the second miniseries, leaving a gap for us to write the end of the story we intended to. But it never happened. I mean, I imagine that Marvel is afraid of comics set in the past, and they think that it would not work. I tried, when I talked to one of their editors, I said, but we could do a graphic novel. It would sell. It's like mature audiences. We could do a graphic novel, straight to graphic novel. But Marvel is not interested. Okay, I respect that. This is their choice. This is their characters. They're not forced to do anything. And I always had this advice, like, don't approach Marvel about doing more Marvel, because they say, hey, you want a job? Yeah, of course I want a job, but the best way to get me and Dave on Spider-Man Noir again is to have you guys write to Marvel every day, and they will listen to you. They will not listen to us. Because you pay your comics. You're the customers. You vote with your dollars. Yes.
How do you find that happy medium of not over-explaining too much of the stuff that's happened in past issues, but at the same time, say you get somebody that comes in fresh off the street?
That's a very good question. Remember what Stanley says, every comics is someone's first.
Yes. Okay.
There are 2 ways of saying this. Again, there's the Marvel way. Every 5 pages, you repeat the names of the characters. And you make like everyone's forgotten, okay? And there's the other way. You consider that comics as a monthly thing are just one part of the equation. And these people are already well informed. So your target is the newcomers, the new adopters, okay? These people will read them in graphic novels, in trade paperbacks. So when you write an issue, it's part of a story arc. This is where most of your attention has to be. We run into a problem with Intertwine is like, we started running late because both Fred and I had personal problems when we were developing the story. And it became increasingly hard. And I won't get into detail, but it was pretty serious. And so Fred started running late. So we had an issue that we intended to be issue 0 that we ended up incorporating in issue 3. And it became part of issue 3. So it was like a flashback. Nobody noticed. Like it was really fluid. But when we had the chance to do a graphic novel, we put that story back where it belonged, like at the beginning of the story. So now, when you read the graphic novel, you will read those 13 pages that we produced first as an issue 0, and it's introductory, but you won't even blink. You won't notice because it feels natural. So you should be able to mix up things and leave room for anything to happen. Like, of course, it's important that you give every issue. I mean, when you create a book, there's a promise on the cover. For us, it was Kung Fu Noir. So there had to be some mystery, noir elements, and Kung Fu in every issue. That's the promise. That's what you're selling. If you don't have that in your book, people will be disappointed. So in every issue, we made sure that you had noir elements and Kung Fu. And it's the same thing for every series. What you sell to the reader, you have to respect your own promise. Or they will just say, hey, this is bullshit. He's telling me that I have sci-fi and everybody's on Earth. Respect your own promises. You're selling something, you have selling points, you have key features, respect them. You don't like when creators don't respect their own thing because they change their minds. No, be consistent. Fight yourself. Like if you say, oh my God, I'm halfway and I'm going to change the end because I have a better idea. Well, take that better idea for the next story arc. Don't incorporate it into the book. Don't break something, okay, if it doesn't need breaking.
Any other questions?
Any suggestions about how you would keep teaching? I mean, like, for a beginner, like how they would keep teaching themselves how to write comics, or like.
Keep your eyes open. Keep your eyes open. Look at the news, not just the American news, all the news. And look at the world the way it is. I mean, comics were always, by design, a reflection of reality. You all remember Captain America #1 with Captain America punching Hitler. Okay? Yeah, but that was the strong political message. Comics are political by design. They're social by design. What people liked about Spider-Man Noir, and the editors were like really happy about this, is that we captured all the social elements, the social background from the 1930s, but we were also able to send some messages about the world we're living today, even though the comics set in the past, is what I call the Star Trek effect. Like, if you remember how Star Trek works, there were a lot of issues that they couldn't talk about on television in the 1960s, but setting the thing in space, they could tackle them, no problem, because most of the censors and everyone didn't see it. You had to be informed, you had to be in the club. It's kind of the same thing with comics. There were always some very subtle messages that were into the comics, and I certainly have my share in intertwined. There's a lot of things like that. I mean, the action takes place in 1971, but it's basically about the world we're living today. So be meaningful.
I'd like you guys to give a big round of applause for
Thank you, Ramon. He's the hero here.
For those of you who came late, my name is Ramon Gil. I'm a writer, sometimes an artist. I've got about...
Yeah, you're a pretty good artist.
Got about 10 books under my belt. And now this too, right?
Yes, this too, because Ramon, I opened...
I was one of the guys who wrote the 13 flashback pages.
You wrote 3 pages flashbacks in issue 5, but that flashback is mandatory if you want to understand the heart of the story.
Anyways, I created this group, which is called the New York Comic Book Writers and Creators, to build a community of serious creators. And I say serious because eventually we're going to be offering workshops where we produce actual work. Not just come and listen, not just come and talk, but to actually produce. That's the goal of this meetup group. And I encourage you to come back. I will try to get as many professionals to come speak to us, and professionals to teach the actual workshop. If you want, you can go to my website, ramongil.com. I offer a monthly newsletter on how to be a creator. I'm about to send out a newsletter where I interview 6 serial Kickstarters. And how
Serial Kickstarters?
Serial Kickstarters.
They're dangerous, yeah.
Yeah, guys who produce at least 2 books a year.
Wow.
Through
Kickstarter?
Yeah. So if you go to my website and sign up, you can actually read the blog now, but I'm also going to be sending it out on the newsletter.
Sorry, quick question. For the serial Kickstarter, when you interview, are you going to ask like how they go about like with their Kickstarter?
You'll see. It's on the site already. So just go to ramongil.com, RAMONGIL, and just do a Google search. You'll find me. And so our next, I'm hoping to get another writer to come in next month. We'll do this again. And I want to get you on one of these days. And not just writers, but also artists. But primarily, to me, writers, because a lot of artist groups already. But there doesn't seem to be a lot of writers groups. And also, like I mentioned earlier, I encourage you guys to network and mingle after this. Jonah has volunteered to get everybody's names and emails down. So make sure you sign up with him. And thank you all for coming. I also want to thank my wife for bringing me here because I just got out of the hospital, so I'm not very strong yet. So she had to drag my ass out here.
So he's really serious about this book.
Yeah, and whoever wants to buy Intertwine, they can buy it today from me, or they can order it on Amazon if you want the retail edition, and the book will be out on August 22nd. I mean, the Dynamite edition. That is, again, has 20 pages less than this one.
Okay, thank you all for coming, but please, we have room for another half an hour, mingle, network.
I'm gonna leave this up front if that works for people, and just type your name.
Oh, thank you very much.
Type your name. Oh, perfect. Chris, I was wondering if I could show you a sample of my book. Sure. If you want to look at it.
Are you a writer too? Are you typing artists and colors?
Yes.
How much was the book?
25.
Let's see.
So, I mean, what is your
Well,
partner?
oh, thank God. Oh, yeah, of course, my phone.
I love working for my